Throughout the animal kingdom, creatures have developed various ways to defend themselves against predators, such as poison, camouflage, and speed. But one of the most effective defense capabilities are simple shells. These hardy coverings make it far more difficult to break through to the flesh that's hidden within, and there's a wide range of different species that use this technique. Shells are basically the medieval armor of the animal kingdom, so join me as we take a look at 15 of the biggest shelled animals. Number 15. Giant Galapagos Tortoise. Native to 7 of the Galapagos Islands, an archipelago that was itself named after the creatures, Galapagos tortoises are the largest known living tortoises. The name is actually given to 13 different lineages of species, all of which share a common ancestor, and each one is adapted to the particular conditions of the island they live on. It's those that have humid highlands that the largest tortoises grow. With dome shells and short necks, these can grow to more than 6 feet long and weigh as much as 880 pounds. It's thought that rather than developing their extreme size to protect themselves against predators on islands, it's actually linked to how they got there in the first place. At some point, tortoises would have had to make the journey from the mainland to the islands, and the larger one is, the more likely it is to survive a trip because they're able to keep their heads high above the water and won't lose as many nutrients through their shells before they reach dry land to replenish. As well as being enormous, they're also one of the longest living species of vertebrate, with lifespans well over 100 years. Something that's made possible because of their extremely tough shells that protect them against any attack that any other animal on the island is capable of inflicting upon them. Number 14. Japanese Spider Crab. Of the more than 4,500 known species of crab around the world, by far the largest in terms of leg span is the Japanese spider crab. Found exclusively in the waters around Japan, their bodies, which are covered with a shell, grow to around 16 inches across, but when measured from claw to claw, they can be an enormous 12 feet wide. They normally live at depths between 160 to almost 2,000 feet, where they hide in vents and holes to wait for prey to swim past. Their exoskeletons, which grow across their entire bodies, protect them against the predators that share the waters with them, such as octopuses. But as well as providing a physical barrier, they're also bumpy in a way that helps the crabs to camouflage against the ocean floor. Surprisingly, despite having a ferocious appearance, Japanese spider crabs are said to have a relatively calm demeanor, even when being caught by fishermen, and this has only helped them to become a delicacy in the country, which has resulted in a number of conservation methods to be put in place to prevent overfishing. Each female will produce as many as 1.5 million offspring per year, so the balance has to be just right, otherwise the oceans could soon be full of these monstrous creatures. Number 13. Tasmanian Giant Freshwater Crayfish. Found, as the name would suggest, in the Australian island of Tasmania in freshwater rivers, the Tasmanian giant freshwater crayfish is the largest freshwater crayfish species on Earth. Known to grow up to 31 inches long, their tough exoskeletons, once they reach this size, means there are no predators in their environment that are capable of hunting them, although they are at risk from platypus and some fish while they're growing to maturity. The crayfish themselves have a varied diet, usually feeding on decaying wood and leaves, but also small fish and insects when the opportunity arises. In the wild, they can live for as long as 60 years, and while they would normally be expected to reach a weight of around 13 pounds, population numbers have dropped so significantly because of human activity that a specimen weighing just half that is now considered to be large. There are thought to be no more than 10,000 remaining in their natural habitat, and as they've evolved without any major threats, their life cycles aren't exactly helping their numbers recover, despite conservation efforts to create a safe environment for them. Females only reach maturity after 14 years, and males after 9, and even then, they're only able to breed once every 2 years. Number 12. Giant Armadillo. Found throughout South America, the giant armadillo is by far the largest of all known living armadillo species. Often growing to around 40 inches long, with a further 20 inches for their tail, specimens have been known to reach a weight as much as 180 pounds. Armadillos are only one of 2 species of mammal that have a shell, and the top layer of theirs are made from tiles of keratin, which is the same material that our hair and nails are made of. Underneath this layer is a secondary one that's made up of bone, and a material called Sharpie's fibers connect the bone to the keratin to produce a shell that benefits from both hard and soft tissue. Unlike other armadillos, giant armadillos aren't able to fully curl up into a ball when they feel threatened, so instead they need to burrow into the ground to protect the parts of their body that aren't covered by shell. Their sharp claws, which are the largest in comparison to body size of any other mammal, are integral to their ability to dig, and not only help them escape predators, but also to dig huge burrows and create holes in termite mounds when they're in search of food. Number 11. Giant African land snail. Native to countries in eastern Africa, the giant African land snail is one of the largest known species of terrestrial snail and has become an invasive threat in many parts of the world because of the way they overwhelm ecosystems. Growing to around 8 inches in length and sometimes far more, they have conical shells that are normally twice as long as they are wide. The color of their shells vary depending on the food that they're able to eat, but in order to make them tougher than those of any other snail, their shells have the highest heavy metal content of all. Their size and incredible shells are what have made them popular pets around the world, as well as delicacies in some cultures, and this is how they've been able to spread so easily. Each snail is a hermaphrodite and is able to lay as many as 1,200 eggs per year, so those that have been released into the wild, whether purposefully or accidentally, have soon been able to establish populations that cause extreme damage to crops and other wildlife. Because of the problems they can cause, it's illegal in most countries to knowingly introduce them into regions where they don't already exist, and doing so can result in a large fine or even jail time. Number 10. Zebra mantis shrimp. Mantis shrimp are a type of carnivorous marine crustacean that grow large, thick shells, and by far the biggest species of them all is the zebra mantis shrimp, which can be found in waters across the Indo-Pacific, from the eastern coast of Africa to the Galapagos Islands and Hawaii. Individuals of this species will usually reach a length of 16 inches, but on occasion ones almost double this size have been found too. They're also one of the fastest moving animals on Earth, and their hunting method is ruthless. They simply hide in a burrow with just their eyes peering out to watch for a suitable target to swim past. And when they're ready, they leap forward faster than the eye can see and puncture their victim with a sharp spear-like appendage. With their shell and the fact that they spend most of their lives hiding away, they have very few natural predators, and even if something does decide to attack, the zebra mantis shrimp has such good vision that they'll normally have plenty of time to escape if they need to. Number 9. Coconut crab. Also known as robber crabs or palm thieves, coconut crabs are the largest species of terrestrial crab in the world, growing on average from 3 feet from the tip of one of their legs to another and weighing as much as 9 pounds. They're found on islands throughout the Indian and Pacific Oceans, where they scavenge virtually every food source they can find on the ground, such as fruits and nuts and even the remains of dead animals. When they're young, they don't grow their own shell and instead use empty shells that they've found to give them extra protection. But once they reach adulthood, they begin to develop an extremely strong shell of their own. They're so well adapted to life on land that they can't survive in seawater for very long at all, and instead live in burrows that they dig in the sand or in soil. In regions where they live, they're so large and well protected that they have no natural predators apart from larger coconut crabs. They're now extremely rare in places where humans live because of extensive hunting. Catching them comes with a number of risks though, because they have powerful pincers that can easily pierce the skin and cause an injury. And depending on their diet, there's also the potential that they have poison in their flesh that'll be passed on if you eat one. Number 8. Pangolin. There are 8 known species of pangolin, which are native to Asia and sub-Saharan Africa, and along with armadillos, they're one of just 2 types of mammal that develop a shell-like covering. With pangolins, this is made up of a series of scales that are made from keratin, so are similar to our finger and toenails, and especially when they curl up into balls, that usually gives them enough protection against any potential predator. Growing up to 39 inches or about a meter long, the name translates to mean the one who rolls up. And while they're distantly related to anteaters, they share many similar traits. The main food source of the pangolin are ants and termites, and they have a number of clever adaptations that enable them to extract their prey from the ground. They have extremely long tongues, which can be extended as far as 16 inches from their mouth, despite just being 1/5 of an inch or 1/2 centimeter wide. And they're covered in a sticky mucus that catches any small insects it makes contact with. Strangely, pangolins don't have any teeth at all, but instead they swallow small stones that accumulate in their stomachs, and it's the action of these grinding together that breaks up their food for digestion. While they may seem cute, pangolins have a further defense mechanism similar to that of a skunk, whereby they can release a noxious substance from glands near the anus, but this hasn't stopped them from being popular in traditional medicines, which means they're the most trafficked mammalian species in the world. Number 7. green sea turtle. While the green sea turtle isn't the outright largest species of turtle in the world, it's the biggest that grows a hard shell, which can be up to 4 feet long. The entire animals themselves grow to around 5 feet long, which means the vast majority of their backs are covered with this protective layer. Native to oceans around the world, but with 2 main populations in the Atlantic and Pacific, their shells are normally an olive or black color, and instead get their names because of the layer of fat beneath their shell, which is green. As they live in the open ocean, green sea turtles will encounter some of the most dangerous predators on Earth, but their shells mean that very few animals are actually able to take them on. When fully grown, the only real threat are sharks, in particular tiger sharks, which have a powerful enough bite and sharp enough teeth to pierce through. This is fortunate because their life cycles can see them migrating as far as 1,600 miles per season to move between their breeding beaches and feeding grounds. Unfortunately, it's due to human hunting that green sea turtle population numbers have plummeted in the past century, and the animals are now classified as being endangered of extinction, something that international restrictions and conservation projects are hoping to avoid. Number 6. Triton's trumpet. The Triton's trumpet is one of the largest species of sea snail and easily one of the biggest mollusks you'll see on any coral reef, with individuals often growing to 2 feet long. They're found across the Indo-Pacific region, including the Red Sea, and are actually one of the most important species on the reefs because of their diet. They're known to eat a number of species that, if not kept in check, can be destructive, such as the crown of thorns starfish, so it's important to maintain a healthy population of Triton's trumpets. The problem with this, of course, is their shells grow so large that they're highly sought after by collectors, and they're not just used as ornamental objects, but also as trumpets in several traditions. Ever since the importance of the species was understood, they've been protected in countries like Australia and India, but elsewhere around the world there aren't any restrictions on how many can be captured. Recent plagues of crown of thorns starfish have shown how delicate the balance of life in the oceans is, and it's been blamed on the overfishing of Triton's trumpets. But until their sale is banned and demand dries up, the problems, which can be devastating to reefs, are going to continue. Number 5. Red sea urchin. If you've ever swum around a reef, then you know there's a few dangers you need to watch out for, and one of the nastiest creatures you could encounter is a sea urchin. Covered in sharp spines, they can easily puncture the skin and deliver a venomous dose. And of the 950 known species, the largest of all is the red sea urchin. Found in the waters of the Northwest Pacific from the Alaskan shoreline all the way down to Baja, California, they live at depths of up to 920 feet and nestle within the cracks and crevices of the reef, or on occasions, rocky shorelines. Typically growing to a diameter of about 7 inches, each spine can be up to 3 inches long. They grow on top of a hard shell, which is known as a test, and the creature itself is almost entirely hidden within, apart from at the base where the opening for its mouth can be found. Usually living for more than 30 years, but with specimens known to be over 200 years old, swarms of red sea urchins are capable of devastating kelp fields, and it's often only sea otters that are able to hunt them and keep their numbers under control. Number 4. Nine-banded armadillo. Found across North, Central, and South America, the nine-banded armadillo is the most widespread of all armadillo species. These solitary animals are mainly nocturnal and spend their lives searching for insects to feed on, with ants and termites making up the vast majority of their diet. As one of the largest types of armadillo, they can grow to a length of up to 42 inches, or just over a meter, including their tail, and specimens have been recorded as weighing as much as 22 pounds. Their shells have 2 layers, the outer one which is made up of overlapping keratin scales, and the inner one which is made of bone, and this covers their back, sides, head, tail, and outer legs. Because of the way they need to dig for food, they develop the ability to hold their breath for up to 6 minutes, and this has resulted in an unexpected ability. By inflating their intestines, they're actually able to float across rivers, or if they need to, they can instead sink and simply walk across the riverbed instead. Their shells are also crucial for this ability, because rather than being thick and heavy, they're relatively lightweight, and means the nine-banded armadillo is quite quick on its feet and can even jump to a height of 4 feet if they're startled and need to escape danger. Number 3. American lobster. Around the world, there are thought to be between 80 and 90 different species of lobster, and they range in size from the smallest, which is about 2.5 inches long, to the largest, the American lobster, which can grow up to 25 inches in length. Found in the Atlantic coastline of North America, usually between Newfoundland and Canada down to New Jersey. They weigh as much as 44 pounds, which makes them the heaviest of any known species of arthropod. Usually American lobsters are bluish-green or brown in the wild, and the tops of their bodies are covered with hard shells that protect them against almost any predator that finds them. As bottom dwellers and feeders, their undersides are less protected, however, and this allows them to trawl the seafloor in search of mollusks and other small crustaceans that make up their main food source. Usually living at depths between 13 and 164 feet, they prefer cooler water, and despite their protective shells, will spend most of their time hiding beneath rocks and within crevices, only emerging when they absolutely have to. Number 2. Aldabra giant tortoise. While the giant tortoises of the Galapagos Islands are the most famous, the archipelago isn't the only place where the supersized creatures can be found. And there's another species that's native to the islands in the Aldabra Atoll, which is a part of the Seychelles. In a similar way to the Galapagos ones, the ancestors of the Aldabra giant tortoise made the journey to the islands from the mainland, and it's because only the largest ones are able to survive the trip. The ones that made it to the beaches were genetically predisposed to growing to massive proportions, something that's passed down to successive generations. With shells that can be up to 4 feet long and weighing up to 291 pounds, they have surprisingly long necks, which allow them to reach up to tree branches that are up to 3 feet above ground level. Amazingly, because the atoll has been protected from human activity, there are believed to be as many as 100,000 of these giant tortoises there, which is the largest population of tortoises anywhere in the world. And they live across the whole environment, from grasslands and low scrub to mangrove swamps and rockier coastal regions. As the largest animals on the islands, there are no natural predators of the tortoises, and their behavior has impacted the development of other species. Tortoise turf, for example, is a name given to vast swaths of the landscape where more than 20 types of plants and grasses grow that develop their seeds so close to the ground that the tortoise's jaws are too large to graze on them. Number 1. Giant clams. Of all the animals that develop shells, the largest species of mollusk and by far the most impressive is the giant clam. Found at depths of up to 66 feet on reefs and flat sands across the Indo-Pacific, they can live as long as 100 years or more and have been known to grow to around 4 feet across with a weight of up to 550 pounds. Composed of 2 half shells that protect the animal inside, the largest of the giant clams reach such a size that they aren't able to fully close the sides together, meaning you can always see part of their inner mantle. Along this mantle are hundreds of tiny eye spots that can detect light and respond to a dimming of the light by retracting the mantle and closing the shell to prevent an attack by a predator. As much as possible, though, they remain open, and this allows water to pass over them and bring them the algae that they feed on. They are unable to move themselves, so it's only those that happen to develop in a nutrient-rich area that have the potential to grow to such a size. Watch our nature playlist for more top 15 videos about beautiful nature. Sit back, relax, and binge watch all of our best nature videos.